Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically the sun in Taurus as well as the sun in the second house. So obviously, as you guys know, it took me quite a while to get this Taurus series started. I had put out this Aries season all the way back in 2022. It is now 2024. So it took me quite a while to get to this point of really starting back up on this Taurus series. So I did all the Aries series, and you're welcome to look down below to kind of see what's going on there if you have any Aries planets or first house planets as well. And in this series, we're going to be talking about specifically the Taurus planets and the Taurus and the second house and how it plays out specifically within a birth chart. So within that, a couple things I'm gonna talk about really quick. One, if you don't know your birth chart, you don't know your information, feel free to go down in the description box below. There's going to be a bunch of different links there for generating your birth chart and find your birth certificate if you still struggle with that as well, just to kind of determine if you do have planets in the second house area of your chart, as well as obviously if you have a sun in Taurus, you're going to know that more than likely. And then the other thing we're going to talk about is specifically the solar energy as well. So we're going to have it kind of three different timestamps down there. The solar energy overview, kind of how it is that energy tends to work. And then we're going to have the sun in Taurus section and then the sun in the second house section. So feel free to check down below and kind of skip around. I'm not going to be offended. It's totally fine. I just love to do this, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time. It's been on my long list of things, and I am like, I need to get this project done, and that is why we're here today. So I'm going to see the next part where we are going to look at just a solar overview and what the solar energy does. So solar energy has a lot of obvious light with it. It has a lot of things that it illuminates. So when we talk about the sun rules our ego. It rules our ability to kind of shine our light and show our light. So a lot of the time when I talk about the sun to my clients, it's a lot of like I'm choosing to kind of show out as this sort of character, or I'm choosing to kind of frame my the movie that is my life in as this sort of character or in this sort of way. So depending upon where the sun sits, it's going to kind of show a part of your character or a part, and when I say character, I mean specifically like in this analogy of a movie, and what kind of role you're wanting to play or what kind of things you're going to pay a little bit more attention to, because the sun is naturally going to illuminate the house that it's in as well as the sign that it's in. And I'm not going to be talking about any like major aspects within this specific kind of video here today. But at the end of the day, the solar aspects as well are going to kind of pay attention to that. Like for example, if there was an eclipse, that would be an entirely different way that the sun's light is going to be like illuminated or disilluminated depending upon what's going on. And so there's many different ways that the sun's light can be kind of bent. But overall, wherever the sun sits, it's going to bring a lot of vitality, a lot of life to specifically that area of both of the chart, both related to the sign that it's in as well as the house that is placed in. And in this video today, we're going to be talking about specifically the sun in Taurus as well as the sun in the second house. And so when we talk about the solar energy, we do definitely see a lot of identification as well. So the thing about the sun in any sign, it doesn't matter what sign it's in, there's already an identification with that being kind of like the way that you kind of will be, right? You're kind of like, oh, I'm a sun in Taurus or I'm a sun in Cancer. And there's a lot of like immediate kind of like conditioning to see yourself as that, right? And the thing about astrology that I'm sure many of you who are on this video here today know is there's so much more than the sun sign, right? That's why I'm making this series here with all the different signs that are all within Taurus, and then subsequently all other signs I'm going to be doing after this, because it's really important to understand that we are not just our sun sign. And I feel like I speak about this a lot when I talk about the sun, is we are not simply just our sun sign. Yes, we have an ego. Yes, we have a way of things that we really value about ourselves and our identity and how we go through that kind of that process, right? But at the end of it all, what's most important is to see your chart in its entirety, and it's in all of the aspects and all of the things that are going on, and that can be quite a lot. But with astrology, this is your chart that you will have forever. So your natal chart is very, very important. It's a very intimate thing for you. And as you learn to kind of really work with the energy that you were given, you will be able to ultimately succeed a lot. And the sun is a very great starting point, understanding your sun. And subsequently where that sun is located within the house, because some people may have a sun in Taurus but might not be in the second house. And also in the same vein, someone may have a sun in the second house but not have their sun in Taurus. And so being able to kind of layer this is really the purpose of why I made this series, or I'm working through this series, is because I want people to be able to kind of go through like you would as a astrological cookbook, if you will, and go through and say, okay, well, I have my sun in the second house, but it's in, Leo, right? So you could watch the sun in the second house proportion as well as the sun in Leo, and kind of go through and learn more about it from those specific areas. And that's kind of the reason why I set this series up the way I did, because I want to be able to help people find their own identity. And of course, we talk about that with the sun a lot, but there's so many different layers to this. That is not just solar based, and yes, the sun is our most predominant light that we see. It's the most common thing that we pay attention to, right? But it is not all that our chart is, and that's why in this video, obviously, we're going to be talking about the sun, and there's a lot of indicators within the sun, whether it's related to identity, ego, the character that you play, the area of life that you're shining your focus on, or kind of wanting to be a main role in, as well as the father figure can also be indicated by the sun, kind of that just main light, right, as we see as the sun. And during the day, the sun is our guiding light, versus at night the moon is our guiding light. So also I feel like it's important to mention, both in the sun one and the moon one, I'm going to be doing about being born during day and night, right? So if you're born during the day, and you have your sun in Taurus, there's going to be a different guidance with the sun, more resonance with the sun, versus if you were born at night with the sun in Taurus, then there would be more resonance with your moon sign. So I'm going to bring that up as well when I talk about the moon portion, when I get to that for moon in Taurus and moon in the second. But at the end of it all, I really am making this video because I want to help people understand their identity, and the sun is a great starting point, and I'm really happy you're starting this right now. So yeah, so that's the sun in this, just like this is the general solar energy and kind of how it works. And we will be going through the sun in Taurus and the sun in the second house. So see, in the next part, we talk about the sun in Taurus. Okay, so we have the sun in Taurus. Now, when the sun is in the sign of Taurus, there's quite a lot of different things that are going on, right? At the time of recording this, the sun is actually in Taurus. And so because of that, there's this very, it's the time of the year, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, where we are now, planting seeds, and we're now really like towing to our own sorts of things. It's the beginning of spring, right? So all of the fixed signs have this theme related to sustaining of that season, right? And so when it comes to Aries, that is the start of the spring, and then Taurus sustains that spring, and then when we move to Gemini, things begin to kind of shift to then summer when it goes to Cancer. And so when we talk about Taurus, and specifically when the sun's in Taurus, that is like the most spring you can really get, right? This is when, they bring up the thing about April showers bring May flowers, right? And it's very interesting that time frame is a lot of where, that's so funny, it's actually right outside of the door. But the thing about April showers and May flowers is it's interesting is because those are both when Taurus season is. That's predominantly when Taurus season is April and May. And so when we think about that phrase, we really have to understand that there's so much value and seeds that we're planting and things that are really beginning that we're just starting to see the results of. And so when the sun is in Taurus, there's this identity that has a lot to do with specifically what is the value, what seeds am I planting, what am I working towards. And when I talk about the sun in Taurus, I am pretty sure that this with the Aries portion is it's really important to understand your Venus sign when you have your sun in Taurus, because that will let you know kind of how you are determining your value. So when the sun's in Taurus, We're in a Venus ruled sign now. So because we're in a Venus ruled sign, the identity is very focused around money and finances and self-worth and self-value. And now that we're in that area of life, we're really figuring out what our value is and putting those roots down and having that kind of like solid thing. When the sun is in Taurus, we see that there's a really big jump in kind of like, what am I really wanting to sustain? What am I really wanting to work towards? What am I really wanting to build? And there's a lot of time here when, with the sun in Taurus, there's a lot of focus on finances too. So you see a lot of bankers with sun in Taurus or prominent second house or Taurus placements. But at the end of the day, the sun in Taurus really wants to have a valuable identity, and it comes in and says, I need to know what my worth is. I need to know what my value is. And typically the sun in Taurus, if it's not afflicted, will have a pretty solid relationship with the father, or the value of the father will be pretty positive. Most millennials are going to have a little bit more intense relationship if they have a sun in Taurus because of that opposition to Pluto there. But for the most part, the sun Taurus does have this very like soft, beauty aesthetic. Taurus also has a lot to do with the things we own, because when we talk about Aries, it's the things that we start, we want to go after, who we want to be, right? And then when it goes to Taurus, it's kind of like, what do we want to sustain? What do we want to keep, right? And so when there's this aspect of like wanting to keep something or wanting to, get rid of something, which can be, that Taurus, Scorpio, you see a lot of like potential hoarding stuff with Taurus sun. Or an identity with a lot of they're identified a lot with their things, right? Because Taurus rules the physical senses, it rules the earth, it rules the clothes we wear, it rules the house that we live in, it rules the things that we own and we spend our money on, because by doing so, we are showing our value. We are showing that this is what I value, this is who I value myself to be, this is what I value myself to be. And so the sun in Taurus has a very positive relationship to their identity, and they consistently work on building that up through what they spend their money on, what they work towards, what they end up like really focusing in on, is really a lot of what the sun is at in Taurus. And when we see the sun in Taurus too, there is this it can be vain. There can be a sense of vanity with sun in Taurus because they're so focused on the physical, that there isn't much of an awareness of like others and like kind of like the waste that is being done. So when I think about the Taurus Scorpio axis, a lot of what that is Taurus is like the beautiful flowers and the beautiful things that, the things that are above ground that we see that are so gorgeous, right? The really trimmed and beautiful, like kind of like the gardens and the really beautiful houses, like those are very Taurian things, like this very beautiful kind of like valuable things that you own, right? And it's so aesthetically pleasing. That's very Taurus. Taurus is very beautiful, it's very aesthetic, it's very artsy, right? And also rules fine art and fine gold, and even diamonds and things are very Taurus. But the thing about the Taurus Scorpio axis is that we don't talk about with Taurus. And sometimes if you have a lot of Taurus, there is not really an awareness of this, of how we got those things, and sometimes the darkness behind those things. So you think about with Taurus and Scorpio, yes, there's these beautiful diamonds, but then we talk about, blood diamonds. We talk about, when it comes to beautiful flowers, beautiful like gardening and things, what do we typically put on flowers to really help them grow really quickly? We put on fertilizer, which is quite literally like waste, right? To a degree, it's human or animal waste that is used to cyclically create value. And same with houses, right? A lot of the time we talk about these beautiful houses and beautiful people in society when it comes to Taurus. But then there isn't an awareness of what is going on underneath that or inside of the house. Sometimes you have a beautiful house on the outside that is really well maintained, but then at the end of the day, it's not when you go inside and you see the darkness and you see all that, there's a lot going on the undercurrent that isn't being really addressed. And so the sun in Taurus can be very, very, very focused on appearances and on value and on earthly things, which is so important to be grounded and to be within their body and to know what their value is and know what their worth is. But sometimes with Sun Taurus, they can have an aversion to looking at that Scorpio side of where this, like fast fashion is a very Taurus thing, where it's like you're spending all this money and you're just throwing it out, and you're not thinking of what was the resources used to make that for you. Like what is used to make beauty, right? Is a lot of what I talk about with Sun and Taurus people, is what is beautiful to you, and what beauty do you have? Because Sun Tauruses, they're one of the most beautiful people. They're one of the most kind and beautiful and soft people, because they have this Venusian, this soft, like more receptive quality. But there is this need for them to also be able to see, and of course I'm a Scorpio sun myself, so I'm on the other side of this, being able to see the more grimy parts, or be more, I guess you could say, more ethical with their spending, right? That's something that I think, because Taurus is a lot about luxury. It's a lot about, all of the fancy things, all of the really, the really nice cars, and the really, the really nice jewelry, and the really the luxury experiences are very Taurus. And when you have your sun there, you want to experience that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's simply about understanding as a Taurus sun, and also to some degree a Scorpio sun, is understanding what your value is. And understanding what you really want to spend your money on. And is, the physical something that is is the one and only thing that we have to work on, right? And so Sun in Taurus also, like I said, with the father, it can have a very positive relationship with the father. The father can be quite affluent, or the values of the father are going to be really, really important. And understanding, maybe there might be some premise with the sun in Taurus, more so than the sun in the second house, where there's this perpetuating the value of the father, and kind of the this could be someone that could work for their family business, or work under their father, or once again work with their own finances. You see this a lot with the Taurus Scorpio, but a lot with Taurus. I see this a lot with people that work in jewelry. A lot of people that work in jewelry and in appraisals is very Sun Taurus, or in flowers and like floral decorations, or in food, because Taurus also rules how we sustain ourselves, how we feed ourselves. And when the sun's in Taurus, these are people that make really great restaurant managers as well, especially if the sun's in Taurus is towards the top of the chart in the 10th house. It can also be people that they just want to have a beautiful life, and there's something about really just sitting in that and feeling that and understanding you're deserving of that. There's a lot of deserving stuff that I talk about with Sun in Taurus, of feeling deserving and feeling like you're valued, and knowing what your value is, and knowing what the value is in the physical that you have, right? What you do to make money, what your value is, but then also what the after effects of that is, and what you spend your money on, right? And what you're wasting, either financially or energetically. And so Sun Taurus, you can have a great eye for art too, because it is a Venus sign. It's one of the 2 Venus signs, and one of the early Venus signs. So these are a lot of people that have a lot of Taurus, I find, are really big into fashion, because it also rules clothes and fabrics. Is ruled by Taurus, and then typically Taurus placements also have Gemini placements, so or at least Taurus suns do, and that also rules the hands. So I see a lot of designers that have a prominent Taurus placement. There's a lot of stuff with that. And then we also see, like I said, I talked about finances, I talked about banking, but we can see people that are gardeners, that have green thumbs, that love plants, right? That just love quite literally the earth, which is so Taurus. The Taurus sun is so grounding, and it's meant to ground. It's meant to ground in the earth, in the ground, and really understand who am I? What do I want to really put my roots into? It's a very rooted sign with Taurus here. And so if you have your sun in Taurus, obviously look to see what house it's in, because that's going to flavor kind of how things are playing out, because the house placement's a little bit different, a little bit more layered than just the planet in the sign. And so with the sun in Taurus, I really urge you to look deeply at your own value and see what, what value you're bringing into the world and what you want to be, right? You see people with sun Tauruses that are so beauty oriented and so value oriented and so sensory, and there's so much power in that, and there's so much ability in seeing your value and working on your value to then be able to teach someone else that, or just to simply shine in a valuable, like luxurious kind of affluent nature. And that's a lot of what we see with sun Taurus, is this very beautiful value seeking and value showing kind of quality with the sun Taurus. And so if you have your sun Taurus, obviously learn more about your value, your money, your resources, lean into that. Look at the rest of your chart, obviously, too, and look specifically to where your sun is located, because the sun can be located in other parts of the chart that are going to be a little bit more public or kind of flavor this a little bit differently. And so, so that's the sun in Taurus there, and I'm going to see the next part we talk about what it means to have the sun in the second house. Okay, so now we have the sun in the second house, and the sun in the second house is a very different sort of energy, I guess you could say, or a different sort of approach than the sun in Taurus. And the reasoning for that is because the house system tells us where that planet is located relative to the horizon line. And so with the sun being in the second house, some of the things that I talked about in the sun in Taurus section are going to kind of cross over a little bit, just because of the nature of kind of the house systems and the significations of specifically the house systems. And we see that when the sun is located in the second house, it's right below the horizon line. It's right below actually coming up, right? It's a little bit before sunrise, maybe like an hour or so before sunrise when the sun's in the second house. And when we have the sun here, there's going to be a very interesting relationship with the family, and this is different than the sun in Taurus, because in the sun in Taurus, the family values are really important, but the sun in the second house, this almost is like there's a leadership quality within your family that the sun in the second house typically has, because the second house does rule that family kind of familial kind of relationship, and with the sun there, you're almost like the leader or the light within that family, and you're the one that's able to say, this is what I want, this is who we are, this is what the family means to us, yada yada yada, those sorts of things. So there's a lot to be said specifically with that, and how the value is kind of created, and so a lot of it is with the sun in the second, it's more honed in specifically on the part that I spoke about with sun in Taurus, which was about searching for your value and understanding what your value is. Sun in the second, you can also literally make money through being yourself. You can kind of, there's a lot of almost like over-identification with your money, over importance with who you are. So these are the people, when it comes to the sun in the second house, and not necessarily in the sun in Taurus, but sun in second house, this is more where you see people that are really flashy, and really like, they like to be seen as valuable or rich or things like that. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are. That's a whole different indicator. But in regards to how the sun is placed and what's going on with the ruler and all those sorts of things. But the sun in the second house is going to have a almost like over-identification with their things, because the sun is our identity. It's what we want to see ourselves as. And in the second, it has this almost like, I'm only my stuff, like I am my things, right? And there could, if it's in a fixed sign, like Taurus, well, obviously Taurus, but Scorpio, Aquarius, or Leo in the second house, there could be a very important like hoarding sort of quality with this, if it's in a fixed sign. Can also, with the sun in the second, there can also be this this sort of like if it's in like a more generous sun sign, or if it has, there's things with generosity, it could make an identity through, starting non-for-profits or making money through sharing your light with what is valuable to you. These are people that could be great philanthropists, right? If it was a sun in Aquarius in the second, I would say that it's someone that would make a great community leader, and like a community activist for like earthly things, right? And sun in the second house can also be really good for being like any sort of like head chef or head of household, or one that's in charge of managing a home, essentially managing something that is homely or maternal. You see this more with like the sun in Cancer in the second, specifically, but this is more where I see that people will just have a lot of identification and attachment to their things and what they can provide and what their value is and what their home is and what their environment is. And so with the second house sun, we're gonna see this like really deep value seeking identity, and depending upon the sun sign and obviously the aspects and other things in the chart, you're gonna see like a very sometimes messy type of person. It can be someone who's, like I said earlier with hoarding, it can have a hoarding quality, or it can have a completely opposite, like philanthropist, I'm just gonna give my money away type of thing too. It really depends on how that sun is placed, and where it is, what else it's doing within the chart. And we see that sun in the second, this is more where the father's values are a little more prominent than the sun in Taurus. Because the sun in the second, it's almost like the identity with the family as well as with what you own is very important. And so these are people that even anything that's really prominent in the second is going to indicate a lot of financial importance and a lot of bank account importance. And the sun, it's almost like it can burn up those things. It can burn up your spending, or it can be selfish spending or spending that you're not aware of. Because the sun can, although it's going to illuminate that area, it can also kind of burn that area. It can kind of be too much light, too much spending, too much focus on that, or focus on being that, in air quotes, whatever that may be, right? Being that girl, that guy, being seen as affluent can be a sun second house thing. And we see that there's a lot of very rich people with sun in the second house. But it's because they're meant to see themselves in a various range of value, in a various range of wealth. You see this more with the moon in the second, but the sun in the second is literally you being placed in the area related to values and morals and ethics. And that's another thing too, is when we see the second house being related to ethics and morals, I think it's really important to understand with a second house planet, any second house planet, what the morals are that are coming from that family unit, and how you are holding up those morals, or how you are being ethical or unethical, or how those values from the family that were passed to you may be unethical or immoral, and how you may want to change that. I see that a lot with sun second house people, but it's typically when the sun and the fourth are connected, or the sun and the 12th are connected. So like think about like a sun Cancer in the second, or a sun Pisces in the second, or some combination that's connecting those houses. And it can kind of manifest a whole different bunch of different ways. But point is for the purpose of this video, I'm really only talking about the sun in the second. But there is a lot of like really shining light on your morals and your values, and being able to say, this is who I am, with or without money, or this is, and you see that more with sun Capricorn, sun Aquarius in the second, but there's more of a like, this is who I am, this is my value, and the identity is a lot around that process of figuring out your worth, figuring out your value, figuring out your morals, your ethics, and seeing what you grew up around, what your environment was too, because the second house does rule kind of that like initial home environment, and how you feel safe in your safety. And so if the sun, for example, is in Scorpio in that second house, there may be this like kind of like power struggle with money and finances. Might have been born into poverty, or born into really extreme financial circumstances. that they have to be identified with and unlearn that identification. And I think that's the thing too, is there's a lot of identification with their family identification, which is understandable, but identification with the value system or the money of their family, because Sun second can also have a family business too. I see this more with once again, Cancer in the second. I have a lot of Gemini rising Cancer suns that I know. And so we see a lot of working with physical, tangible things, and working with, for some reason, Sun Virgo in the second would be working with pets, or, clearing up houses, or doing something along those lines, or a family business in that regard. There's not a family business with the Sun in the second, but it's more of an inheritance of the family from the father. It's not necessarily the Moon in the second can have that too, but it's a little different. Because the Moon's a lot more sensitive, it's a lot more quick moving. The Sun doesn't really move as fast. And so there's a lot of importance with understanding your value and your role in the family and what that means. And what, like I said, the Sun second, way more than the Sun Taurus, unless Sun Taurus is at the top, or in other areas of the chart that are really prominent or really highlighting that Sun. The Sun in the second is going to more than likely be the light of the family or the leader of the family. That's kind of what the Sun second is kind of about, to a very simple degree, is being a leader within a family unit, or being able to lead a valuable thing, and being able to determine what that is, be able to determine what the value of you is you are within various different environments, and saying, I'm going to consistently have my value around all these different spaces, or be able to extract value from my environment, and to continuously see how that may be a part of my identity, or that may be something that I can, that I can be. It's almost like Sun second house people, especially if the Sun's in Aquarius or Pisces, or any double-bodied sign, so any mutable sign, so Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, a lot of the time with this, what I see is a lot of people that will kind of go to fine art things, or will go to museums, or will go to various environments and kind of sample stuff. I see this a lot more with Pisces than anyone else with Sun in the second, but it's very much that exploring your value and exploring how you can identify with those specific parts of your value, right? It's almost okay, I'm going to try this thing out. I'm going to spend my money on this thing. I'm going to explore this area. I'm going to explore this shop, or this new, sort of item, or this new way of looking at things, or this new clothes, right? That's another thing with Sun Taurus. It's all about thrifting. There could be a thrifty area to that, and when we see that more with Saturn's involved. And so I think there's a lot to be said with this Sun second house that speaks to your identification with your environment and with the values that surround you. And I think if you have your Sun in the second house, and you happen to be a millennial, right? Or anything really, doesn't matter, because if you have your Sun in the second house, I really urge you to be able to be able to go and try on different values, right? Go thrifting, go into different environments, and explore your value, and don't get too rigid in identifying, oh, I'm worth this, or this is, and don't get too rigid on looking at your bank account as being the end all be all of your money, right? I didn't really talk about money as much in this portion as I was expecting to, but these are lead bankers, lead hedge fund managers, types of that. You could say that's too with Scorpio, but more so with Taurus. But it's a lot about being able to identify and separate potentially yourself from your bank account, or from your value, or from the things, right? And we are only merely on this earth for a little while. We don't get to take any of this with us when we die. And yes, we can work our butts off while we're here and do a lot of things and make a lot of money and have a lot of rich experiences. And with the Sun in the second, we definitely are wanting that. and wanting to explore the roots and explore our value and our money and what money can do for us and what money can provide for us from an identification standpoint. But at the end of it all, it's a lot about what we did with that money, what we did with our time, with our energy, with our identity, what we identified with, right? What we cared about, what we shined our light on, or like brought our awareness to, or brought other people's awareness to too. Because with the sun in the second, you can also naturally bring people's awareness to their finances, or to their value, or to their style, or to, their family, or to their morals or ethics and things. You can see that a lot with second house planets, which we'll kind of go through as we talk about all these different second house planets here in this series here. But you see a lot of the time that there's a lot of like ethical, value, moral stuff. With the sun too, it's very like, you're gonna bring attention to that. You're going to, and whether it's your own attention, right? Obviously, typically it's gonna be you. That's gonna be the one that's gonna be the main character in that, right? But the sun can also bring other people's attention to that area in their life, right? So if your sun's in the second, you can bring other people's attention to their financial, part, or their sustainability part, or their role in that, or their role in, earth or plants, or whatever that second house is kind of doing. You can bring people to be aware of their role or their value that they're bringing to that sign, right? If it's Sun Aquarius, Sun Pisces, whatever. And so it's important to be able to see that there's a value that you have to bring to something, and that is shown by the sign, other parts of the chart as well, obviously, but you definitely have value. And I see a lot with Sun second that there's other indicators in the chart where there's going to be like a deep desire to find authentic value. I see that also with Sun Taurus. A lot of the time when you really are getting really deep into astrology, you can really, it's all pattern recognition, and you can really see the underlying thread in a lot of these things. And so Sun second house people, I typically see this a lot of people that will have a lot of like really fun things they do with their money, but also there's a lot of like either identity kind of like struggles of like, what am I identifying with? What am I spending my money on? Who am I? That sort of thing. Or it can be the value and reclamation of that value. I see a lot, or like a sturdy build of that value, or a dissolving of that value, or a sudden change of that value, as we talk about with other planets aspecting, Venus and things like that. And so obviously the other planets in your second house, if there are other planets outside of your sun, which there likely will be, just because the sun is close in proximity to a lot of planets, I urge you to really, really look to what those other planets are within the second house. And obviously that's what this series is for, so you can look at the other planets, whether it's the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, whatever it may be, that's also in Taurus or in the second house. That's what the purpose of this series is. And so I love this. I love being able to help in whatever way I can, and I really hope these words fall on someone's ears that really need to hear it today. That's really why I do these things. And there's a lot of value seeking in this, and I think it took me a while to figure out the value of why I'm doing this, and that's why I'm starting it now, 2 years later, and really doing the Taurus part, which is the sustaining part of it. So so that's really all I had to say on the sun second house. I kind of a little longer than I wanted to on his, but and then I'm just gonna say really quickly that if any of you are interested in any sort of readings or any sort of things with me, there's in the description box below is going to be my website. I also do have a few courses down there and different things that I offer. So if you are ever interested in connecting with me in any other way outside of YouTube, feel free to comment down below, or reach out to me via email or my website or Instagram. Socials are down there below. So. And of course, as you guys know, because it's YouTube, like, subscribe, all those things, comment, as the algorithm. You know how it works. I don't have to get you into this, and I feel like I say that all the time every time I do these videos. But so just feel free to reach out to me with your comments, and I would love to hear how this Sun second house is playing out for you, or Sun Taurus has played out for you, and how it resonated or didn't resonate, especially because the second house and Taurus are both related to being able to determine your value and determine what is you and what is not you, right? What is a valuable part of you and what is not, or what is an identified part of you and what is not. And so I really hope that this video was able to help many second house people at any point in time that you come across this video. So I appreciate you. I love you. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.